Hello, hello. Oh, it looks like Scott is in the waiting room. Awesome. Welcome and thank you for joining us. If you join us live, wherever we are streaming, I believe it's LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Comments are open. Be sure to drop a comment in if you have anything that you would like us to chat with you about. I'm going to let Scott just join me for this intro since he is here. Welcome to the stage.
Hey, thanks for having me, Kandace. I appreciate it.
How are you, Scott?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. I'm actually just going to throw up your IG. If you would like to get in touch with Scott as you hear more about him and hear what he has to say on this live today, you can check him out on IG. He's always posting really funny videos and reels because he's a pretty funny guy. He's got a big race coming up, so hopefully he'll share a little bit about that with us. And just before we jump in, we are here really to represent the podcast network. So if you are in need of some great coaching education from really awesome smart coaches, jump over to this page on the CoachRx website, coachrx.app/podcast-network. Check out all the shows, subscribe. Episodes are dropping weekly from pretty much all of the guys and gals. Mostly, I think I'm the only gal, mostly guys. But awesome content on there. So be sure to check that out. We also have a number of free resources. Carl released his top 3 coaching frameworks. I have a 1-page marketing plan guide, so check that out. And I'll get into other guides later on. But wow, we have Scott. Anything you want to share about what's going on in your world?
Well, I mean, there's always something, right? We just still loving what I do. Like more than a decade, if not 15 years into the game as a professional coach. And my alarm goes off on my wrist every morning. I have no problems hopping out of bed, put 2 feet on the floor and hit the day running. 3:15 wake up, usually get home about 5:30 p.m.
Living the dream.
Really, right? Yeah. I mean, I think if someone told me that I'd be pulling 14, 16-hour days at work, I'd still do it. 100%. It's so rewarding. It's been said so many times, it's almost cliche, but we are the front line of health and wellness. And, the OPEX methodology has taken me so much farther than any other training has taken me. And I'm just blessed to be here and just super happy to be a part of it. Yeah.
Oh, we are so lucky to have you as part of the network because you bring so much wisdom, so much humor. And I just love being able to connect with you because you're always a good time to hang out with. And I also love watching your content. I love how much you give your kids a hard time. I love when the dog shows up in the content. And I love when you or the wife are having coffee dates at the lake because that just hits me in the feels.
It's a every Sunday ritual. I get up super early, make a thermos full of coffee. Amy likes her coffee a certain way, so I get her little Yeti cup all prepped and foamy with the vanilla creamer that she likes. And we walk about 3 miles that morning. It's beautiful. We watch the sun come up over this brand new pond that our local town built after a 12-year flood wiped it out. We just sit on a couple rocks, take the dog, and just let her run around. It's so early that she can be off leash most of the time. So she likes to go, flying sukaharis into the pond, chasing ducks and geese. The geese, not a big fan. The ducks, they just tolerate her. It's our Sunday thing, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. And you have this race coming up, but talk a little bit about how you got into doing these races, because I feel like it's fairly recent over the last couple of years that you've been doing them more consistently, right?
You talking about the races that we host?
Well, I guess you running in them, but also hosting.
Yeah. So, back, I reached out to Henry Toronto a few years back and said, "Hey, man, I'm in my 50s. Coach Toronto, for those of you that know Coach Toronto, in my 50s. See, this guy right here, he's late. He's got to go to work. Get out of here."
You're famous now. You're on YouTube. Give us a flex.
Anyway, I reached out to Henry a few years ago, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm in my 50s. I feel good, but I've got this urge to race again. And I was like, I'd like to try my hand at OCR, obstacle course racing. So I got into the Spartan realm and, started doing just one race here and trying to push myself harder and get on the podium. And with Henry's help, I did. We're talking age group. Now I can't beat those 19-year-old kids. I'm sorry. Maybe Henry can, but this guy right here, I can't compete with those kids. Yeah, so I started doing that a few years ago, and I fell in love with it. I got hooked with the community. I'm not a big fan of the politics, but we could take up an entire YouTube episode just on the politics of Spartan racing. But I do really enjoy throwing down, being out there, getting muddy, challenging myself, working towards those goals and obtaining those goals. And yeah, so I've been doing trifectas. I try to do 4 a year, which is when you do a half marathon on Saturday, you do a 10K on Sunday, and then a 5K Sunday afternoon. You do 3 races back to back. And I'm pretty beat up afterwards. But I'll sign up for another one as soon as I'm finished. It's one of those endurance curses, I guess you can say. But anyway, through Spartan, Spartan kind of developed another race called DEKA, DEKA. Obviously, it's Greek for 10, and OPEX Midlands is an affiliate. So that allows us to throw these fitness tests in our local communities, and it's been absolutely wonderful. We've had a lot of great support. Now, I have a small gym, so I really can't hold them inside my facility. For lack of a better word, it's a micro gym, perfect for what we do, not for big events. So I actually rent out. There's a place uptown called the Pavilion, and it's like 5,000 square feet of covered space. So if it's raining, it doesn't matter. If it's cold, there's heat. If it's hot, there's big fans. And anyway, so yeah, we usually sell out these events. And from a coaching standpoint, a lot of my clients are like, wow, that looks fun. It's easy to do. Well, I don't say easy to do, but the barrier of entry is small, right? We're talking body weight stuff, fast, you race yourself. And from a business standpoint, in the past 2 years, I've probably brought on 14, 15, if not, I'd have to look at my records, but at least that many clients just from throwing these events and seeing us do it and the professionalism that we convey while we're doing the events. And just everyone can tell from my volunteers to the staff to my coaches that we just love what we do. And I think that resonates with folks. They're like, man, these people like really dig this. Like there's something out there, something about this that like kind of draws a magnet some of these clients into our facility. So yeah, we got one coming up in October. I try to do 2 a year. It's a lot of work. I may do 3 a year, but the money's okay. But it's more like the chance to bring more people into our community pays for itself, right? So it's worth the extra cost. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Brandon joined us, so I'm going to bring him in.
Awesome.
Hey, B.
What's up?
Hey, Brandon, how are you doing?
This is actually perfect because Brandon is also he's been running a lot. And I heard that you actually dropped a little too much weight when running recently, and also are recovering from a shoulder injury. So I don't know how you're really running like this, but maybe chat about your recent running experience.
I was dropping weight because I wasn't, because of the shoulder injury, because I wasn't lifting like as much as I probably should have been. But the running feels fine. So I've just been going with it. Feels good. I've been getting back into like almost 30 miles a week now. So it feels okay right now. Knock on wood. But
you just duct tape that shoulder down and go for it.
You what?
You just duct tape your shoulder down and go for it.
Well, there's really no pain. I don't know.
Good.
Like it's just everything. Like I just can't really bench or do push-ups at the moment. So there's push-ups, dips, anything where I'm like supporting my weight out in front right now. It's just not feeling great. But incline bench is fine. So I've been doing a little dumbbell incline. Got back to 35 pounds yesterday with that. Just playing around with it, seeing what doesn't hurt, doing what doesn't hurt, and then whatever hurts, I'm just staying away from right now.
I don't know if you heard, Scott. He had like a tear from BJJ, and
I did not know that, man. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I separated my AC joint. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
not great.
But you recovered pretty quick. I mean, it's only been, I think, a month, right?
Actually, yeah, I think it was like a month yesterday.
Yeah. So awesome. Great with the rehab.
Wolverine.
But you recently ran a race. Was it the beginning of the year, the end of
April?
Beginning of the year, right? April. Okay.
Yeah.
Which one did you run?
Yeah, it was my first like half marathon, so it was the first time I ever done something like that.
Nice.
Yeah. It was very good.
Awesome.
But it was like I said, first 13.1 miles that I ran, and then I'm gonna do another one in November here in Albany.
So today I wanted to pick your guys' brain about something. We'll really just open it up. I'm going to pop this on the screen, which is something that Carl put together. I don't know if you guys have seen it. We released this a while ago with a free guide on the CoachRx side with a video of Carl chatting around the importance of exercise selection and this matrix that he put together. And I'm sure you're both very familiar because a lot of this comes from CCP. So, I want to make sure that I'll give everyone a link in the description of this video in terms of how to get here and grab this chart for yourself and also watch the video. But I think maybe we could give people a little bit of information, how you guys think about exercise selection, either leveraging a framework like this or just in general. And one thing I wanted to start with is that oftentimes when we post something that is intended to inform coaches around the importance of thinking through exercise selection more strategically, I will get a lot of kind of snarky comments back of like, oh, if you're a coach and you don't know how to pick the right exercises, you probably shouldn't be coaching. Like, right, people say these things. And I'm like, hey, everyone's at a different place in their coaching journey. Everyone needs a framework to think about these things more strategically. And I guarantee there's probably something in here that you maybe haven't thought through, even if you are a more seasoned coach, that could help you better select exercises to accomplish the goals of your clients while keeping them safe and enjoying the process and all of those considerations. So I wanted to, do either of you have any hot takes on exercise selection, just in general, in your coaching toolbox, the role that exercise selection plays, or how you think about exercise selection, just to kick us off in this conversation?
I don't think I have like a hot take. I mean, I feel like I've talked about this a lot myself, but like, I think getting stuck on movements is a really like important thing to avoid. Like not getting so fixated, like, oh, I have to back squat or I have to deadlift. Because I think the stimulus is most important, especially like in some of the world that I've trained in with like the MMA athletes. Like I think sometimes it's someone has a goal that they need to achieve and you have to get them to that goal or get them to that stimulus. So it doesn't really matter the exercise that you choose so much as it matters like the stimulus they're getting from the exercise, right? But I think I personally love having frameworks, and I think anybody who kind of like goes against that is not to say they're wrong. I just think for me, it's always helpful to have an idea of what like a general progression looks like for movements, because then it helps me kind of fit in or go off track a little bit. And I've kind of talked about this before, where it's like, I think if as a coach, if you don't know where you're coming from, it's going to be really hard to ever get back there, right? And sometimes you're just kind of floating along the exercise path, and then you end up with what's going on Instagram now, where it's like people are just posting exercises that don't really have any relevance. Like maybe they, in a very specific setting, they do, but they're really hard to regress and bring back to like the reason we need them, right? And I think with some of this stuff, the progression, again, like a movement thing like you guys created, like I think that's great for foundation. And I think that, yeah, like, you know, maybe if you're a coach and you don't know how to choose an exercise, like you need to brush up on it. But I think that those sorts of things are so important, because if you don't have it, you don't have like the foundation for everything else, right? And I think that with the movement selection, that it just really becomes important to have like the visual of it, of like, okay, well, if this is the next step, or this might be the person that is in front of me needs this type of exercise, then you can start to actually like change it or adapt it to the person in front of you, right? And actually have something to come back to. But I wouldn't say it's a hot take. I would just say that's, you know, I think that stuff's really important to have as a coach.
Awesome. Scott, any thoughts that sparked for you?
Yeah, I agree with Brandon 100% on that. And, you know, I think a lot of coaches, especially younger coaches or people trying to get into the fitness realm, are really, really quick to go to complex, right? They want to, you know, and I think that's what separates professional coaches and especially OPEX coaches from the rest of the world is, you know, it all comes down to that assessment, right? And I understand I don't want to go off a tangent on assessment, but, you know, with that, spending 30 minutes watching somebody move in time and space relative to their body weight tells you volumes. And that's where you begin your exercise selection. You don't begin your exercise selection, you know, if you look at Carl's frameworks, you don't begin on the far right. You begin on the far left, not politically speaking, of course, but you know, you start where they are, right? And you know, if someone can't touch their toes, we're not going to go into good morning deadlifts and super heavy squats. You know what I mean? That's just we want to say common sense, but that's the same kind of people that will call you out on an Instagram post when you're when you're showing a one-legged RDL and they're like, oh, you need to do those bilateral because this is ridiculous. You know what I mean? And you know, yeah, sorry, but yeah, that's the foundation. The foundation is a wonderful word, and sticking with those basics and not being in a hurry to progress until someone is, you know, to use the word mastery might be a little far fetched, but until they know exactly what they're doing, you know, hey, where do you feel that on your body? You know, what are you getting out of this talking to the client? And you're like, well, I feel it in my shoulders. It's like, well, this is a leg workout, so let's fix that. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, totally. The foundation is where it's at. And frameworks, there's frameworks in everything. Why shouldn't there be frameworks in fitness?
I think also as a new coach too, like
100%.
I think it's really important as a new coach to follow that, because again, you need to build some sort of base to like get creative off of. You know what I mean? Like you can't just go, obviously you can go and get creative, right? But I think any base that you create off of has to have like some, you know, sturdiness to it, so you can again come back and know like, all right, maybe that was unnecessary or didn't need to be done, or like that was a really cool example of a movement where, like, for example, there it might be as simple as like a squat, right, where you're talking about that simple progression of like goblet squat, double kettlebell front squat, you know, then maybe we're talking about front squat, or even further back like counterbalance air squat, goblet squat, double kettlebell front squat, back squat, overhead squat, right? Like just simple progression all the way through. If you have that as a coach, then you have an idea of like, okay, well then maybe I can try a single arm kettlebell front squat, right? Or I can try a single arm overhead squat, or I can try a staggered stance squat, like whatever it might be. But once you have that progression of, or at least that baseline of, hey, at least I know this is what a good squat progression could look like, then you can start to tweak those little movements at each part for a person. And then you can get really creative and actually have an understanding of where you're building off of. And then that's a real actual, like, you know, what would you call those? I forgot what those things are called, where they like branch out all the way. But
tree.
Well, not a tree. Well, it's like a specific, I can't remember the name of it. Is it a Venn diagram? What's the Venn diagram?
Oh, well, Venn diagrams would be circles that overlap.
What's the one with all the lines that come out of it? Maybe with those, I don't know. But anyways, something like that where it builds off of each other and eventually it kind of creates a bigger picture that you're looking at. And I think that's really important for like any beginner coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And obviously really tough to just talk about exercise selection in isolation without thinking about obviously assessment, which we hit on a little bit last week, but maybe can you, either of you, kind of share a little bit about how most OPEX coaches think around FBR versus, or parts over patterns, and I should say the opposite, patterns over parts, and how we're thinking about that in the context of exercise and program design, and how that connects to exercise selection.
Yeah. Whoever. So like basically like the question was like how OPEX uses that to like choose exercise.
Yeah, I mean, we don't necessarily have to say how OPEX does, but for you guys, as you're thinking about design, why would you think about patterns over parts and then use something like an exercise selection framework to progress someone against those parts, and maybe weave in there the thought around variety versus boring
Yeah.
repetitive programs, right?
Yeah, well, I say patterns over parts early because it helps someone like learn how to move first off. Because a lot of times when you ask someone to like again contract their hamstring or squeeze their bicep, like they might not be able to like do something that simple right away. And I think with some of these bigger movements or patterns, we'd say it kind of introduces people to movement in a more digestible way, right? Because I think a lot of times we get introduced to isolation like very early because of like how big bodybuilding is, and that's kind of like a real, maybe not as much anymore. I'd be interested to see, but I know like when I was starting, like it was bodybuilding. Really, it was like everybody got started with bodybuilding, and then some people, branched out from there. But I think bodybuilding is like a really great base to have. But I think the pattern over parts mentality gives people, one, efficiency in training because you want to make sure you're getting a lot done early on with people because they early on they're not going to be able to handle a lot of specific volume anyways. Like if you were to do something a day of somebody who's brand new to the gym where you're doing like bench press, then you're doing flies, then you're doing push-ups, then you're doing throw in 2 more chest exercises and then triceps, they probably wouldn't be able to move their arms for like a week, right? So the whole goal with like patterns over parts in my mind is always to kind of touch on everything, get their body that stimulus and get them moving, and then progress it from there as they get better. Then as they get better and they work out like more days throughout the week, like consider someone new might be only training 2 to 3 times a week. Really, once you get to that like 5-6 day range, that's when you even start to, or in my head, where I'd consider to start to throw in more isolation movements or specific stuff from there. And then I forgot the last part of what you mentioned, but
no, you set that up well, because that's kind of where I was going, thinking about patterns over parts, exercise selection, and our mission of getting people to move every day and be consistent, right? And I think that your point that hits that super well. If you're hammering someone with a chest day and overdoing the volume, they're obviously not going to feel great the next day and be able to come back and move again well. So yeah, just keep going on that thought.
Yeah, I was
Scott,
gonna say, and then like
once
once someone develops and they get that, they build that resiliency, we'll call it, to movement, then we can start to like work out more days per week and isolate a muscle and start to get like more specific strength or aesthetic gains to that area. And I think that's why it's really important early on to teach these big patterns for efficiency, and then we can start to kind of isolate as our, I guess, capacity grows, or the, like Sam Smith talks about a lot, like that conversation of software and hardware. Like as their mental ability to complete movement grows, then everything else in the skill will start to grow with it. But that first part is so important to get to the actual like aesthetic and performance goal you want. You have to get that first like learning curve out of the way. And I think that patterns over parts does that early on. And then also, like I said, allows you to really build a solid base for a program moving forward.
you want to jump in and all, Scott? Any thoughts you have?
I would. Brandon didn't damn near say everything I was thinking, but yeah, I mean, going back to, I love the word resilience. I love the word foundational. When we're talking about FBR, that's an excellent starting point for 90% of our clients, right? Well, 100%, but you kind of have to, your older clients, sometimes you have to kind of put FBR in there without them knowing about it, right? Mm-hmm. Especially, I mean, you're still doing FBR, but hey, we'll throw in some curls for the girls here, but yeah, I mean, it is the foundation for a lifelong of lifelong longevity, vitality, and just a lifelong life of fitness. We've all been on the receiving end, whether it was early or when we were growing up, or of just a chest smash day, as Brandon said, and it, yeah, you're working, you know what I mean? But I mean, the next day you're like, my God, man, I don't want to go to the gym. I can't even carry my car keys.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So those working on those patterns, yes, a new client's going to be sore. It's just part of the process, but they're not going to be incapacitated. And if we incapacitate a client, their chance to really, really look at long-term fitness starts to diminish like almost immediately. Now, of course, that comes with, onboarding process. Like, hey, look, this is the first, you haven't done those. We're waking up some dormant tissue here, right? You're going to get into some patterns, we're going to get into some patterns that you haven't hit in quite some time. You are going to be sore. Let's work on these nutritional recommendations. Let's work on maybe take tomorrow off, but I don't want you to sit on your ass all day. I want you to get up. I want you to walk around. I want you to maybe come in and hit the air bike for 20, 30 minutes, just flush the system out, move some oxygen, move some blood, move some lymph. Let's come back Wednesday and let's do it again. Right.
Yeah, we have that. The standard, well, I think the James Vitality split is like every other day, right? FBR every other day, aerobic progressions every other day.
And
getting
it
that
makes
blood
sense.
flow to recover.
Yeah, I think it also helps people when you're doing like bigger patterns. It's easier to progress that stuff like in a shorter span, because obviously, like, I think one of the worst things too is, and I think I've seen this a little bit more than I'd have liked to recently, where like people are going into certain programs and they're like nitpicking little things. Like they're nitpicking the way that they move. They're nitpicking, to the point where it's like, I'm finding something wrong because if I don't, then like I'm not doing my job type deal. And I think a lot of times when someone comes in to the room, like they still want to see results. Like they still want to see they're getting better. And I think that training in that way, where it's like full body, you're taking that time during the week, and you're almost sometimes, like you said, with people who are new, like you're regressing movements almost to get to like what would be a normal movement, right? So sometimes someone might not even be able to do a goblet squat. So it's like you're breaking down the goblet squat into like a box goblet squat or whatever it might be. But showing them like small wins throughout with some of these bigger movements is a lot easier than, showing them, a 5-pound increase on their seated hamstring curl. It's just like, well, it might be an increase, but it's a lot harder to show actual like carryover on that, as opposed to like, hey, you just jumped from 10 to 30 pounds on a goblet squat, or you just jumped from, 2 20-pound kettlebells to now 2 30-pound kettlebells on a deadlift. And those types of things they're going to get more carryover, and they're going to have a little bit more to give on those and make improvements quicker, which I think is really important early on. Like, I think we talked about this last week, but like momentum is so important early on in that journey that like, if you don't, most of the time, if you don't show them at least something, a lot of people are going to start to lose that desire in that first 30 days. And that's when you really need to kind of set them up for it.
Yeah, you made an excellent point about, and I'm assuming you were talking about coaches nitpicking, correct?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I see that a lot too. And with some of my new coaches, that's one of the first conversations we have. It's like, hey, they may have done 10 things wrong with that, but we're here to observe right now. This is this person's first day, right? Thank them for showing up, right? You did a fantastic job. Yes, we have a little bit more work to do, but this is fantastic. You're doing, when you did your assessment, you couldn't do this. Look, we're only one day into it, and your squat pattern looks better, right? Paralysis by analysis will drive a client absolutely crazy. And then the negative self-talk with the client. You have to be there. I'm not saying we're not cheerleaders. We're fitness coaches, right? But yeah, they need some high fives. They need some pats on the backside. You know what I mean? When they do something dramatic or even super small, like not lifting their heels up when they squat. That's huge, right? We can definitely overcoach. So I try to tell my coaches. I don't try. I tell my coaches, look, there could be 6 things wrong with that deadlift. You're just going to talk about one, and you're going to tell them 5 things they did right. You know what I mean? So that's what's going to get that buy-in, because they're like, okay, this guy does actually care about me, or this gal actually cares about me. But here I am making progress. Maybe slow, but I am progressing.
Yeah, of course. I think it's important.
That's a win. That's a win. Yeah.
Something I'm always interested in, just getting a pulse check from you guys. clients coming in and getting started in, recent few months this year, any trends you guys are noticing and the reason why they're getting started?
I think one of the things for me is definitely, and maybe I'm just seeing this more because we've talked about it and like I've been looking for it, but like a lot of these people are coming to me with like something in their life that they're like really trying to change. It's not just like a simple, like, I just want to like lose weight. Like, and a lot of these people have come to me recently with the idea of like, I'm trying to improve my life because I've had some major setback or I have some major goal or I have, whether it be a PT test or a couple, almost three, I think three of the most recent people have been like coming back from major setbacks of not training for over 3 years. Like one of them was 6 years they hadn't trained in, and they were like a professional bodybuilder. And the other one was, 3 years from a heart attack. So it was like, and then the other one was, I believe, over 2 years just from life getting in the way, but I think it's, and like I said, maybe it's because I'm looking for it, but goal, like having these things that they're trying to accomplish in everyday life where they need that little push and someone who's not just there to be like the drill sergeant, but also someone who's not there to just be the cheerleader, like he was just talking about, like you need someone who's empathetic, but like, hey, listen, like, I know you can do this. Like, trust me, like one of my clients specifically has a couple, mental blocks on like weight and the speed of like the treadmill. And it's been really important to be like, hey, listen, like, I know you're here because we're kind of reaching that point where he's making progress like this, but the mental thing is we're reaching that mental point where it's going to be like, this is either going to stop us and we're going to plateau or we're going to work past this and just keep going. And it's been really specific numbers that he's like concerned about. And that was like a big thing for me where I'm like, okay, well, we have to, what's a way I can get this number in his hands without stressing him. Right. And it might be a farmer's carry. It might be, just holding, like, I don't know, putting the weight away sometimes. Like, I don't know what it is, but just getting it in his hands and be like, oh, okay, like I can hold it here. Like, let me try to hold it somewhere else. Right. And I think the biggest thing, because I was a little bit off track, but a lot of the clients are like that. They have these deeper things that they're trying to work through, and fitness is turning into more than just like, I'm here to work out. It's turning into, hey, I'm really trying to like change my life. And this is like the first place I want to go. And I would say that's been a big thing I've maybe been paying attention to more.
Yeah, I would agree with you there, Brandon, as well. It's like I've actually seen a trend of, don't get me wrong, we still get some sport-minded people in. They're like, hey, I want to be a better basketball player. I want to be a better soccer player, a better volleyball player. But I've seen much more a rising trend in over 60, like realizing like, hey, especially females, right? Like, I have spent my entire life serving others. I want to take care of myself now. And I think that our branding, OPEX nationwide, and the coaches, and hopefully what we put out on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, or just walking around town, walking around the pond 3 miles every Sunday, I think that is where people realize it's not too late, right? And then to piggyback off another thing Brandon says, I've had a lot of people. I've had 2 clients, take that back, 3 clients with clinical depression that have come in, and they realize the benefits of weight training, cardiovascular training, and emotional stability. So we're starting to see that trend, like the emotional. I wish, in the back of my mind, I would like to see more young people do it, because I think that the current, I'm not want to sound like an old guy and say anything about whatever millennials or whatever. I don't believe that, but I do believe that, when I was younger, sure, there was mental stuff going on, right? But we had a way to cope with it, and I think that nowadays, the young kids, and even, I mean, it's almost 30 now, right? My son's 23. He's had a phone for 13 years. You know what I mean? And they're just buried in their phones, and they're constantly bombarded by everyone just looks beautiful and just amazing, and they're not. They can't get away from it. So I would like to see a trend of younger people getting after it. But I'm still happy to coach the older generations. And
you just made me think about something I heard, Scott, that more recently, and this is kind of Gen Alpha. So,
Okay.
This is, I think, the demographic that you're speaking of, really kind of starting to reject the time that they are plugged in, right? There's so much isolation that they've experienced, and they are so plugged in front of tech all the time, that they are getting much better about desiring going outside or leaving the phone for the weekend and like spending time with friends, really cherishing those like in-person moments. And I was listening to a podcast that was going on about some of these topics, and they were talking about the trend of hiring someone to walk with you, because meeting this like loneliness, isolation issue that's happening in culture with a lot of like work from home, school from home, just life that we're in now, and wanting to spend time outside, but also wanting to build relationships. So there's a whole new area of fitness coaching that might take off, which is just,
I love that.
hire a walking friend.
And that's probably some of the best news I've heard in a while. I would love, if you don't mind, after this, shoot me that link to that podcast. I'd love to listen to that.
I will. I'll try to find it. I listen to a lot.
Go for some good news, Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's such an important point because, we do spend a lot of our times like on Zoom calls like this and in front of computers and on walking pads. But just the fact that obviously getting outdoors, being in the sunshine, from a mental health perspective, like so valuable. But
Sure.
It's good to know that I think that Gen Alpha is seeing the effects of what's happened on Gen Z, and also they're growing up and hitting this age now to where they're like, hey, I can actually change this. I can do something about it, and I can go outside and spend time in the sunlight.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's good.
I guess one
And
thing
it's
I
just a
wanted
heads up.
to
I
ask.
got like five more minutes, just to let you know.
Oh, you? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be interesting to also just touch on like when we're thinking about exercise selection or patterns over parts and like progressing someone through, giving them the buy-in to the program, getting them the buy-in to the progression. What are some strategies that you're using? Are you kind of revealing this skill progression or thinking about movement as a skill and motivating them to continue with this thought of progression in exercise selection? Or is that not something that is kind of top of mind or inspiring to clients that you're currently working with?
It depends. I think some people like want to know that, but I think for the most part, a lot of people just don't. Just being honest, I think some people are just like, yeah, cool. Like, I just want to come work out, And I think I try to.
The majority of my clients say, I don't care what you do. I just want to open up my phone, do the workout, and get back to my life. And I think that's that. And they stick around for the programming. They get those results without any extra mental fortitude, right?
100%. Yeah. I think some people, that's why they pay. They're like, I just want someone to tell me what to do.
I don't know if I'll pay somebody to walk with me, but it's a damn good idea.
But
you got a wife for that.
Yeah, I do.
When you explain something, I like to tell people, like, give them a rough idea. And if they ask questions, I'll always like go deeper and let them know if they have any questions. But I think for the most part, kind of explaining, maybe not upfront what they're doing, but I do like to reflect with them and kind of be like, hey, well, like, this is where we started and now we're here. So it's like, I don't know if you realize how big of a deal that is, but we've kind of covered 6 of these steps. And I think as people train longer with someone, I think a lot of I've had a lot of my clients for like a decent amount of time. And even the ones that I've gotten since I got back to Albany, they've all been with me for over like 3 to 6 months at this point, but they see it usually because like they're able to kind of see the progression a little bit more. And they're able to see, obviously in the beginning, you're not really sure what you're getting into, but once you go through, 3 months of training with somebody, they're able to kind of see like, oh, okay, so are we going to do this next? Or, is this kind of connected with what we were doing before? And they can start to see that really the line starting to connect on everything and put 2 and 2 together. Like, oh, okay, well, this must be for this. So that's why we're going to progress into that. And I think, that's something I try to teach my clients. Cause I don't want clients to be dependent on me. I want them to understand and know that, like, at the end of the day, I want them to enjoy training with me. Of course, I want to continue my business and whatnot, but I want them to also be able to leave and understand the gym and understand that sort of thing. So it's not just once they stop training with me, they're done. And I think teaching those progressions, having them understand whatever they want to know, and knowing that there's more that they can learn is really important. And then just kind of going from there.
Brandon, you mind if I ask, are you majority remote, or do you have a brick and mortar?
I don't have a gym, but both. I have I just got back into having multiple clients because I was traveling for the last couple of years with somebody.
Gotcha.
So it's been a little bit of a transition back, but I'm just getting back into like the regular personal training schedule with the online stuff and some other projects. But yeah, so that's kind of the mix I'm in right now.
Yeah, I was just curious because I think along those same lines with, with clients starting to connect the dots and seeing their progression and seeing the progression in the patterns. I think one of the beauties, now don't get me wrong, I have several remote clients and I absolutely love remote client. I think Kandace and I have talked about this. Like one day I would like to go fully remote. One day. I'm not there yet. Maybe I should put it on paper, but when we have an open forum and an open gym and you have an individualized gym and you've got these people all around you doing different things, it almost self-loads the next progression, right? Because you may have somebody doing, kettlebell deadlifts from a box. Maybe they're hinging 4 inches, right? But to the right of them, you got a guy doing a trap bar with 315 on it. Right. And so they're watching that and they're saying, and that starts the conversation. And that's the beauty of the one-on-one, or the group individual design is, hey, this is where I am. What do I have to do to get there? And that's where the conversation starts. Right. So they almost coach themselves in a way to like, that's where I need to be. I know I didn't come in here because I wanted to do 3 wheels on the deadlift, but seeing it, that's pretty cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
What can we do, right? So then, but like that's another conversation. Cool. Well, right here we're here. We're going to have to bend a little bit farther than 4 inches, but we've got time and we can get you there. And there's that buy-in again with the progression. And I think a lot of that from observing and remote coaching. There's a lot of videoing, so we're still observing. It's just, we can't. It's not tangible. Can't reach out and touch them. But I think that's one of the great things about people learning those patterns is they see not necessarily an end goal, because there never is one, right? What does James say? 1 down, 10,000 to go, right? But they start to say, hey, man, I'm starting to get pretty good at this. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Awesome.
I do have to bounce. I'm sorry, guys.
Hey,
Brandon, it's awesome.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for your insight. I really appreciate it.
It's always so fun. Like we started doing this a few weeks ago, Scott, I was telling you, just to like test it with the coaches that are in the podcast network. And I was a little concerned about, hey, is it going to be messy having multiple people on at once? And will that be too overwhelming? And will people be bored, if they're not participating in the conversation the whole full time? So we started doing them in like 20-minute increments where one coach would jump on for 20 minutes, the second coach, and then the third coach, and break the hour up into 3 coaches. But last week we had all 4 of us on at one point for the majority of the conversation. And it ended up being really fun for, I think, the coaches to bounce things off of each other. So thank you 100%. For jumping in today and just chatting through some of those things. But I would just love to open it up to you. Is there anything top of mind for you I guess we're still early in the week. It's only Tuesday as you enter this week, with just things you're excited about or things that would be potentially inspiring to others who are not as lucky as you are to work with all these clients in person?
Oh, wow. As for, I don't know. I've got some stuff going on in my life right now that are bittersweet. I think, I don't know if I've kind of touched on this. My oldest son just commissioned in the United States military, commissioned in May. He moved back in with us, which has been a blessing. Other than I have no food at my house and it's always trashed. But it's worth it. But he ships out in about 2 weeks. So we got kind of used to having him back in the flow and like going out to dinner and spending more time with him. Cause we said goodbye to him when he went to college, and here we are saying hello to him again. And now we're saying goodbye to him as he embarks on his next chapter in life. So that's kind of been, from a coaching standpoint, that's kind of been my motivation just to crush my work right now. Right. Because I want to obviously run a business. I want to make sure my coaches are happy. I want to make sure my clients are happy. I want to make sure all my programming's done on a timely manner. I also want to get my ass home, and I want to spend time with my 23-year-old son who's going to Germany. You know what I mean? And sure, will I go to Germany? Absolutely. But I don't know when that's going to be. You know what I mean? So that's kind of everything. Obviously, nothing halts as a business owner. Nothing ever stops, right? Whether you're a remote coach or an in-person coach, nothing stops. But it's interesting to see the seasons and how priorities, can drive you. They can either drive you away and put your business on the back end, or they can motivate you to put your business first so that you can do all the things you want to do. Right. So as any new coaches, I would say the freedom will come, I guess, is kind of the point, maybe not the first year, maybe not the first 3 years, you're in there all the time, but the freedom to be able to do what you want and spend time with loved ones, we're in a unique situation, Kandace, to where we can, other than having to coach on the floor, and I only have to do that a couple hours a day, I got a lot more time where I can be flexible and I can go do things. I can have a lunch with my wife. I can meet the boys for coffee. You know what I mean? And I think I'm going off on a wicked tangent, but
I love it.
But I think that is one of the joys of the business. One of the side perks. Obviously the big perk is changing people's lives, making people move better. Falling in love with individuals that you never would have even crossed paths with if you weren't doing what you were doing, right? Like there's people in my gym that I would never hang out with if they weren't a client. But you start fitness crosses all demographics. It crosses all religions. It crosses all political views. It brings everybody together. I think I did an Instagram post about that. It unifies, right? So I can go on and on and on about the perks and the joys of being a professional coach. But yeah.
I love that. I mean, it's a good motivator because I know, we're opening up the OPEX method mentorship. And I do think that is a unique, you are in a unique situation because you run that model, and that model allows the business to thrive in a way that gives you that freedom. I think it's unique in the market. So I'm excited for this next group of coaches who are going to jump into the mentorship. And it's a small group by design because we want to be able to really dig in deep with them. But I do think that that's being an individual design coach, whether you are fully remote, hybrid, or you own a gym like yourself, is a model that allows for you to be a career coach and for you to have all of these benefits that you're mentioning. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I think looking into the new methodology, it looks fantastic. I think it's going to be very successful. I think nothing against the legacy OPEX, nothing against it. I think they're all fantastic programs. I think that everybody should be able to endure 2 hours of James in a room on a blackboard, on a whiteboard. But I mean, if that's not going to happen, I get it, but
yeah. Well, I think the tactical component, because obviously from a software perspective, a lot of people are intimidated by building out their systems and getting themselves set up in the technology to allow them to have the efficiencies that give them more time freedom. Right. So that's the piece. I think that's the added benefit is that we've always had final projects go through CoachRx. We've always had those components built in, but now it's step by step, let's build out all of your systems so that when you complete your final project, you're ready to rock and you have intake and onboarding and assessments, and how to design well in the system, both exercise and lifestyle, and your business suite is ready to rock for you. So I think that's going to be those coaches are going to have a big advantage when they get started that way.
100%. And that's, I just reached out. I just got a client with early onset Parkinson's, wonderful lady. And I've been dealing with her, working together. We're talking infancy stages, maybe 3 weeks. Right. And one of the greatest things, about OPEX is I went on to LearnRx, and there's like a ton of information about past coaches that I could reach out to that have dealt with Parkinson's clients, where I could get all that vast knowledge and that resource of a global network of professional coaches. And as well as I do, I could reach out to anybody on Instagram that's an OPEX coach that I've never even met, just seen them on Instagram, and we can have hour-long conversations, right? And I think that's what separates us, because we don't care. And I say this all the time: there's plenty of fitness for everybody, right? I don't want every client. I don't. I want some select clients that fit my demographic, that I'm good at dealing with. Will I venture out and take on some, for lack of a better word, strays? Of course I will. But, being in an OPEX methodology, it almost kind of weeds out the people we don't want. Now, that being said, I would like to change the lives of everybody in the world, but I also know that I am not the only guy that can do it. I can't do it. I don't want that responsibility, right? But there are people that do very well at like a Crunch Fitness and an Anytime Fitness. Good, stay there. If you're doing it, I don't care. Keep on trucking, right? But the like you said at the very beginning of this podcast, the thing that drives me crazy is you can post. I think I did a ski erg video, me doing a ski erg. I got 6 people telling me how to ski erg. I'm like, dude, that was not the point of the video. The point of the video was just me having fun. It's not. I wasn't looking at, okay, let's like stitch this thing into a million different pieces and let's talk about how I can, the pool, the stand. It's not about that. Why are we so quick, or why are other coaches so quick to be right instead of learn? And that's what separates OPEX.
Or support.
Yeah, support's a great word, right?
I dropped this into the ambassador chat a few weeks ago because I was like, what happened to just commenting and showing some love to your peers or your friends, right? It blows my mind when I'll see a great piece of content and I'm like, why is nobody just showing this guy some support, So I do think that, I love that about our community as well. We get to do things like this, come together. You guys get to collaborate, share knowledge, support each other. There is like 0 ounce of competitiveness in the network, which I also love. I mean, we have coaches who have gone through CCP, who have their own mentorship, who have their own courses that they've produced. And it's never anything but we are so excited for them to have success and to be able to grow and expand their own skill set. And support, nothing but support, I think, across our network. So I love that about the crew.
Yeah. So,
well, I'm excited for your son. I'm grateful for your son and his service, and I will keep him in my prayers as he ships off. I really appreciate all that you do, and also that now that we get to hear more about his journey, this is going to be exciting.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. Like I said, bittersweet, tough to swallow, knowing, we obviously, I think the military is a wonderful thing. There's a lot of people within OPEX that are past the military. Carl, PJ, myself, many, many others. I don't want to leave anybody out, but there is the possibility of harm's way, and that's always, as a father, or it's always in the back of your mind. But it's also a great institution. I wouldn't trade my service for the world. I learned more. That's my formative years, right? When you're young, that's when you start to develop good or bad habits, and so I'm excited for him. I hate to say goodbye again, but we know it's a short term, goodbye. So
yeah, amazing. And I do have, actually, this is a good timing. I have your coach spotlight in queue. It's coming up, so I'll be editing that and getting that out very, very soon.
Well, thank you, Kandace.
People
I appreciate
know more about your origin story as a coach, because it's a great one.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you. Have a great week. Thanks for jumping in with me.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
See you soon.
Bye.
Well, thanks, guys. I'm going to end the stream here. Again, if you do want to have access to the exercise selection matrix, let me just pop over here. If you hit CoachRx.app and you go to resources and hit resources and guides, there'll be a full list of all of our free resources. But this one in particular, if you opt in, just drop your email, you'll get access to the exercise selection matrix breakdown video from Carl. And then you'll also get access to that worksheet that I shared. Let me pop that back up on screen. The PDF looks like this, and it will just guide you through his thought process in developing this exercise selection matrix. And of course, the video will support that as an awesome guide. So I hope that's a helpful resource. Thank you guys for jumping in on the live today. And if you're catching this on the recording, be sure to leave any comments and we will answer them next week if there are questions for the coaches. Thanks so much and have a great week.